Welcome to Order Militaris Radio TV, and today is our weekly topic on terrorism around the world, and we have a few stories to share with you, and we welcome Brother Alexis Bonello to the show.
Thank you, AJ, for having me on. And I'm always glad to be on Order Militaris Radio TV, but in particular to do this weekly show on terrorism in my capacity as president of Order Militaris, Montana Corporation, dedicated to providing for the defense of Christians persecuted by terrorists. So sadly, we have to do a weekly show because every week there's horrible atrocities being committed around the world, and the media, mainstream media, doesn't let you know about them. So let's get into it.
Yep. Well, let's see. Over the weekend in Portland, the people who are for Trump either came into Portland to help break up the riots and stop them, or they're actually Portland citizens who are for Trump decided enough's enough and start holding Trump caravans in the city.
AJ, explain what a Trump caravan is for those outside the U.S.
Well, Trump has a flag, says Trump 2020 or Trump, and pins like their campaign sign, but on a flag, and so they hook the flags up on flagpoles and put them on their trucks, vans, and whatever, and drive through the city, and it's a Trump caravan.
Okay.
And this one Trump supporter wasn't doing anything wrong. He was just walking the streets. I don't know how they recognized him as a Trump supporter, but on the video you can clearly hear one of the Antifa terrorists saying, "Look, over there, there's a Trump supporter." Then all of a sudden, another Antifa members opens fire and shoots him dead.
And what has been the police response or the response from the White House about this?
The shooter saw at large. No response from the White House. And the mayor of Portland is blaming the violence on Trump.
So I guess if you're going to vote for Trump, you better hide the fact because you're not going to get any protection from Trump for doing it. That's really a shame. And we're including this in today's program because the civil unrest in the United States is getting to the level of terrorism. The purpose of shooting that one Trump supporter is not just to kill him, it's to terrorize anyone who might go to the polls in a city and vote for Trump out of fear that they'd be shot. Yeah. And so it is an act of political terrorism, if not racial terrorism.
Yeah. Then we go to Wisconsin, Kenosha, Wisconsin, which borders Illinois. Now, it is illegal for a young man over there to carry a weapon, true. But in rural America, we do carry weapons, we do know how to use them, and we learn on them at a very young age. And for all the news reports going on over there, he was called in to help protect a used car dealership, which he did. He stopped one of the riders from throwing a Molotov cocktail onto the cars by shooting them dead, one shot. and he was chased by two others, one with a skateboard swinging it. He shot that one dead, then another one who was holding a pistol. He started to bring up the pistol to shoot the young man. The young man got his bearings back after being hit by the skateboard after shooting the skateboard attacker and shot him in the arm, or the guy almost, if he didn't get a tourniquet on his arm, probably would have lost the arm. And the left is outraged, saying it's murder, when in fact the video shows otherwise, that it's self-defense. The one that he might have trouble with, since he's a minor, is the one defending the car a lot, because it depends when he goes to trial and stuff. He'll either still be a minor, 17, or then turn 18. So, but he has a good attorney, Lynn Wood, who helped Nicholas Sandmann take on the corporate medias and win. So,
Well, if they have not yet held an inquest, the question might be open. But the first thing they need to do is hold an inquest. And if the inquest finds that it was self-defense, the prosecutor should not even proceed to a trial.
yeah.
I find an interesting, curious note that this young man who did the shooting, his name is Rittenhouse, which is German for House of Knights. So it seems like he comes from a long lineage of men who've used weapons and know how to use it. You know, and that kind of near-death altercation at close range, to be able to shoot someone in an arm to disarm them is a choice not to kill them, and shows high ethical standards and high capacity in the precise use of a weapon. He has to be praised for that.
Mm-hmm.
And that man who lived should thank him for it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a lot easier, if you don't know anything about guns, it's a lot easier to kill someone than just shoot them in the arm.
Mm-hmm. So, what the media is doing is just, I would say it's a form of terrorism.
What's the media reaction to this?
He's a murderer, he's a murderer, he's a murderer. Defaming the kid, not listening to the reports coming out. And
they haven't learned anything since Nicholas Sandmann, have they?
Mm-mm.
Are they attempting to incite people to murder this Rittenhouse?
Oh yeah, they doxed his entire family.
And they published that on in television?
Not television, but internet.
So the families had to flee their home.
I don't know about that, but probably soon.
Mm-hmm.
And
hopefully, in the United States, this violence will die out. The authorities will intervene and realize that the country's on the precipice of madness and civil war. And if they don't intervene, it's going to go that way very easily, because one shooting will lead to another shooting, include to more shootings and then more shootings. And then once thousands of shootings are taking place every day, there's no way the government can intervene. The government needs to intervene now. Even if, hypothetically speaking, an intervention now could stop it, it might already be too late, because the government has allowed the media to stir the pot, okay?
mm-hmm.
And if the government doesn't intervene and the country heads into civil war, I strongly urge Catholics to wake up, stop living in the dream world that the America you grew up in still exists. It doesn't exist. Our political elites have apostatized, not only from Christ, but also from the Christianity and from the Constitution and from any desire to observe the laws. A government cannot require that you keep the law and that other people don't keep the law. The government can't require that you don't defend yourself and other people can murder you. That's not a government, it's a criminal organization. They no longer have any authority.
Mm-hmm.
So the inaction of the president, the inaction of governors, the inaction of chiefs of police caused them to lose authority. So you don't have to obey that anymore. You can do as this Rittenhouse did. You can take a gun into your own hands and defend yourself. And no one can say that anyone does not have the right to bear a gun. It's a natural right. The government can't take that away from you. There are certain cases you're a criminal, the government does take it away from you for the protection of the general good. But when civil war breaks out, none of those laws matter anymore. Everyone has the right to bear a gun, whether you're legal age or not. That's just natural law. That's Catholic teaching. I'm not telling you to break the law. I'm just telling you when there is no law and no government, then you're not breaking the law because there's no more law. Okay. Law only exists if it's enforced. The government decides not to enforce the law doesn't exist anymore. The government can't say 99% of the people don't have to observe the law, but you do, and therefore we're persecuting you. No, that's unjust persecution. It's lack of due process. So for the mere fact that they allow Black Lives Matter and Antifa to carry guns and weapons means that, according to the principle of due process, that no one can be restricted in the owning and use of a gun to defend themselves. The laws have all gone into abeyance on that. And if the Constitution is still operative, well, Congress could never have made a law, and neither can any state, that prevent a 16 or 14-year-old from using a gun if he knows how to use it. And this guy clearly knows how to use the gun. He knows how to use the gun better than the police, because at least he's using it to stop criminals who are attempting to murder people, even if the person to be murdered is himself.
Mm-hmm.
And to defend yourself from being murdered, you are the first policeman, okay? You have the same authority as the police or the military to use deadly force in the defense of your own life, because you're the first policeman. It's called the right to self-defense. And you don't need to appeal to any law, government, authority, minister, religion, or anything. It's in the natural law. And you can use any weapon to do it. You could use a knife, a gun, a bazooka, or a tank, okay? You can use anything. And that's your judgment, and no one really can criticize you on it. No one can say you could use excessive force. If you use what is at hand. It's quite a difference if you purposely choose a method that is excessive. But if you only have a split second and you go for something that would normal circumstances be considered excessive, it's not excessive, because no one can judge you in that prudent decision. That is not within the discretion of anyone else, because you have the sole right to defend yourself. No one else has that right. It's self-defense. So that we need clarity on that as we go into this, and we have to urge our political leaders to stop the violence. Okay, but it's been what now? 12 weeks.
Yeah.
They have refused to stop the violence. It's pretty clear that even Trump doesn't want to stop the violence, and the election's not going to stop the violence. So now all the psychological manipulation used by mainstream media and the left in the last 70 years is going to go into effect, and all the hate's going to come out. And if Antifa can kill a Trump supporter just for wearing a Trump hat, what's going to prevent your neighbor from killing you to steal your silverware collection that he saw 5 years ago when he ate at your house? Nothing. All chaos is going to break out. This is how dangerous it is. Restoring law to order is very difficult once it's lost. It can be lost with the death of the few, but it can only be restored with the death of millions, because it will mean war. Okay, and don't you think for a moment that China and Russia are going to sit by and watch America descend into civil war and just twiddle their thumbs? No, they'll come and invade and take over the country, and then you'll be under even worse rule. So this is what it's at hand, and we're telling citizens, you got to organize militia, contact the police in your town if they're honest and actually are opposed to what's going on, and defend your towns. And not only defend your towns, work together in your county to defend the cities where don't have police that want it defended, okay? Because if the countryside doesn't unite against the Marxist-controlled urban centers, the countryside will be picked off one by one. And you don't have much time now, okay? You're counting the times. Don't think the election's going to save you. It's going to have absolutely no effect. None.
Yeah.
They're doing this now because they didn't like the fact that Trump won in 2016. Imagine the level of rage if he wins in 2020. It's going to escalate. They're going to go absolutely wild, because the Democrats will realize there's no way they could ever come back from this. They've so burnt their name, their reputation, and any sense of integrity that they can only take the country back by violent revolution. And that's what they'll decide to do on the day after the election when they lose. And don't be surprised if that day the Democrats in your neighborhood come to your door and shoot you dead. Don't be surprised. I'm not trying to make you afraid. I'm trying to make you prudent. Wake up. Okay. If you don't own a gun, you should go and get a license and get a gun, okay, before the election. Learn how to defend yourself, have a plan to escape, have a large cooler with all the necessary supplies ready to be filled and go in your car, and a place and a plan to escape somewhere. You should have that. Anything can happen in the next 3 months in the United States. And this is no joke. This is not a television show. This is not a reality TV show. This is not make-believe, and this is not a movie sitcom. Okay.
Then we head down Aurora, Colorado, the suburb of Denver. Black man, a Black Lives Matter supporter, actually acted like any jihadi would. Screamed their slogan. This would be Black Lives Matter, and killed and stabbed a white couple.
A white couple, both of them, on the street with no provocation.
Nope.
That's pure terrorism. That's a pure act of terrorism. We said this in 2017 after what went on in Charlottesville. The Democratic Party had become a terrorist organization, and they didn't repent of Charlottesville. They planned for even worse than Charlottesville.
Yeah.
Which means they're totally possessed now of an evil intent. And if you're living in a Democratic state and you're not a Democrat, get the hell out of that state before the election day. Your vote won't matter anyhow. Most of the people are Democrats, but your life matters.
Yep.
And they know how you vote. It's on the rolls. They'll take the voters' rolls and they'll see who's a Republican. They'll go door to door and they'll kill everyone. Because the Democrats have no morals. They're totally in favor of killing 65 million children in the womb. Now that's not enough blood for their bloodthirst, now they want to kill the living. Look at all the elderly people they killed in the COVID-19 scam. They purposely moved infected people to elderly care homes to infect them, to kill them. And they denied the proper treatment and the proper medicine to kill them. So they got away with that 100,000 dead. And now they hunger for more because they serve the Lord of Death.
Yeah. Then we go to Lebanon with a report by Con Coughlin out of Gatestone Institute. The title is Lebanon Must End Its Poisonous Political Relationship with Hezbollah. The conviction of a senior Hezbollah terrorist for assassinating Lebanese Prime Minister Farik Hariri has provided the hard-pressed Lebanese people with incontrovertible proof of a malign influence Iran exerts over their political system. Following an investigation that has lasted for more than a decade and a cost of a staggering $1 billion, the Special Tribunal for Lebanon, the UN-sponsored body responsible for trying 4 Hezbollah suspects accused of murdering Mr. Hariri in a car bomb attack in Beirut in 2005, has finally passed its judgment. The tribunal concluded that Salim Jamil al-Shash, a 56-year-old senior commander with Hezbollah, was guilty on all counts of participating in the car bombing in which 21 other people were killed. There was a degree of frustration in Lebanon that the tribunal was not to reach guilty verdicts on the 3 other Hezbollah defendants who are also tried for Mr. Hariri's murder. One crucial factor that contributed to the tribunal's decision was the refusal of both the Iranian-backed Hezbollah leadership as well as the regime of President Bashar al-Assad in neighboring Syria to cooperate with the investigation. As a consequence, the tribunal was unable to find any evidence that the leadership of Hezbollah in Syria were directly complicit in Mr. Hariri's assassination, even though most Lebanese believe it was carried out in reprisal for his attempts to end Hezbollah's involvement in Lebanese politics. So the refusal of Hezbollah and Syria to cooperate also meant that the trial had to be conducted in absentia, as none of the accused was prepared to attend the hearing. So it is highly unlikely that Assange will ever serve his sentence, even though he has been found guilty of carrying out one of the most devastating crimes in modern Lebanese history. Nonetheless, the fact that a senior Hezbollah commander has been found guilty of murdering one of Lebanon's most prominent democratically elected politicians raises serious questions about the future role of Hezbollah, as well as the organization's Iranian and Syrian backers and Lebanese politics. Speaking shortly after the verdict was announced, Baha Harari, the eldest son of the murdered prime minister, told me that the conclusion of the trial should result in Hezbollah's complete exclusion from Lebanese politics. Hezbollah has no place in Lebanon's future, said Mr. Harari, who has launched a campaign for a new Lebanese constitution designed to end the country's long-standing sectarian divisions. He is also insistent that the malign powers such as Iran should no longer control Lebanon's destiny. Hezbollah cannot and does not do anything without the say-so of its foreign masters, he added. The new Lebanon must be a neutral country. The only way for this to happen is for Hezbollah to be removed. They had their chance. If they haven't delivered for Lebanon so far, they will not in the future. Nobody with blood on their hands can hold political office in Lebanon. The challenge now for Mr. Harari and other Lebanese of a moderate political persuasion is to mount an effective challenge against Hezbollah's dominant position in Lebanon. It is a move that would present a significant challenge given the enormous investment Iran has made over several decades in building Hezbollah's terrorist infrastructure, especially in southern Lebanon, where the militia poses a constant threat to the security of Israel. Mr. Harari's campaign for Lebanon to end the interference of Iran and Hezbollah in the country's political system will certainly be helped by the damning material that emerged from the trial about the organization's links with Syria and Iran. It was revealed, for example, that Hashash, apart from being a senior Hezbollah commander, is also the brother-in-law of the Imad Mughniyeh, the notorious Hezbollah terrorist mastermind, responsible for, among many other atrocities, the truck bomb attacks on the U.S. Embassy and Marine headquarters in Beirut in early 1980s. Mughniyeh was also instrumental in establishing Hezbollah's military wing, was a constant presence in both Tehran, where he worked closely with senior members of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, and such as the Quds Force commander Qasem Soleimani in Damascus, where he lived with his family until he was killed by an Israeli missile strike in 2008. In addition, Assash was related by marriage to Mustafa Badreddin, another senior Hezbollah commander, who was originally charged alongside Hashash and other Hezbollah defendants by the tribunal, although the charges were later dropped after Badreddin was killed fighting for Assad regime in Syria in 2016. The man convicted of Mr. Harari's murder, therefore, is no ordinary Hezbollah commander, but someone who operates at the organization's highest levels, a fact that should help enormously in Lebanon's coming battle to rid itself of the malign influence that Hezbollah and its Iranian paymasters have exercised over the country's fortunes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we should point out that in the sectarian system that they're referring to in this article is that Lebanon has a constitution where the president is always a Maronite Christian. The head of the armed forces is a Maronite Christian who also serves as kind of like the vice president. The prime minister is always a Sunni, and the speaker of the parliament is always a Shia. Okay, regardless of how many votes they have in the country. Okay. So by wanting to break up the sectarian system, I think he wants a system where there's general election for every office and it's not reserved for one religion rather than another. And that would be a Masonic solution because the Christians only have about 45% of the vote. So that means if the Muslim, well, the Sunni and the Shia don't get along, okay? But it could possibly allow a Muslim to become president of the country, okay? Unfortunately, the Maronite presidents of the country have pretty much sold the country down into the hands of Iran in recent decades. It's pretty sad to say, and it's not my opinion. This is the opinion of Lebanese themselves. So Lebanon's in a terrible way. France can clearly be faulted. France drew the borders of modern Lebanon and hasn't done anything to protect a Christian government in Lebanon or a peaceful government in Lebanon. They pretty much let Lebanon go to pot, which a thing they haven't done in West Africa. In West Africa, France has maintained its colonies and seen that terrorism doesn't take hold or anything. But in Lebanon, they've just let the whole thing go to pot. And whether that's because the French government is inimical to Israel and wants to cause them problems, or the French government, because they're Masonic, they just want to break down the last Christian state in the Mideast, or because the French government is just completely incompetent or too implicated in its own internal domestic problems, having allowed millions of Muslims to immigrate the country. They fear offending any kind of voter that might be upset that they take a strong stand and make Lebanon a neutral, peaceful country that's not at war with Israel or with anyone else. So it's a terrible situation. Lebanon's under France's sphere of influence, so the U.S. rarely takes any move about Lebanon, because to not defend France, which is our ally. I don't know why we call France our ally. France hasn't done anything for us since it was Catholic. The only time France ever did anything in America is when it had a Catholic king. And yet we give all the gratitude to a Masonic government. It doesn't make any sense. If we were a true ally of France, we would restore the Catholic monarchy in France, which we've never done. So I don't know why we're having any deference to the French, you know. They have never helped America. So, and Lebanon's in a terrible, terrible situation now. They have no effective government. The Hezbollah is the government of Lebanon. You can't do anything without their nod or approval. The ministries aren't giving out any new permissions for this and that. And if it is, it has no meaning. You go to certain parts of the country, the police will not protect you, Hezbollah, if you offend Hezbollah. In some parts of the country, if you even mention the currency, the name of the currency of the state to the south of Lebanon, you could get serious things could happen to you. So it's a terrible situation.
Yeah. And just recently, ISIS member was planning an attack in Beirut, and he was arrested.
Yeah, ISIS had a wannabe terrorist that was planning to attack the military there. And the ISIS are Sunni, so he might have been turned in by the Shia, who's to say. Terrible situation.
Yeah.
But we're not talking about, the assassination of Hariri was more than 10, 15 years ago. But more recently this week, there has been terrible terrorism in other parts of the world, so we might as well move on and talk about that now.
Yeah. In Sweden, 2 teenage boys, 15 years old, were raped, tortured, and buried alive by Muslim terrorists. And then the Swedes decided to burn a Quran. So the Muslim terrorists who are slowly controlling the country of Sweden decided to burn the city down.
Is it clear how much of the city they burnt, and which city are we talking about? Or or the name of the city not reported because the news is being censored out of Sweden?
Mm, doesn't say which city.
Probably in Malmo. They're having a lot of trouble down there in Malmo. It was a couple years back. They had hand grenades going off all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
Liberals, importing peaceful people so that there's no problems in your city ever, and you never have a problem with arson, murder, or rape,
Mm-hmm.
or the sodomizing of the boys in your town. Now for Nigeria, what was it, Chad?
Nigeria. Hundreds of Christians have been kidnapped by ISIS terrorists in northeast Nigeria. That's all we know so far.
Terrible. I think it's ISIS in West Africa, SWAP, who's responsible, not Boko Haram this time. But they kidnap Christians because they want war brides. Because in Islam, during jihad, you can kidnap women, even girls, and make them your brides, and force them to have your children and force them to convert. That's Quranic law. So has that finished the round out? There's some vandalism in France. I saw a report this morning that the grave of a priest who was an Armenian priest and fled the Armenian genocide, his gravestone, a statue that said he survived the Armenian genocide, had written on it in French, "It never happened," the other night, obviously by a hand of a Turk. Still denying it.
Yeah, then the story probably didn't get to you last week, Monday, that single terrorist on a German highway used his car as a weapon.
Yeah, and tried to kill several people. I think he destroyed 3 other cars.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. On the way back to work, one morning just decided to kill everyone on the road. The level of psychopathy among some persons is unimaginable, but a religion that says you can lawfully be a psychopath if you're attacking people who don't believe what you believe is not a religion from God, obviously, and I think the world needs to recognize that and enshrine that in law. It cannot be a religion of God if it thinks that. That's just psychopathy. That's madness. That's not religion.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't call it a religion.
That's all of the news so far, folks.
Terrorism continues because we don't do anything about it. Okay, we don't take the measures to defend ourselves. We don't organize our defense, and this is AJ and I have been talking about this for 4 years, urging people to do something about it, and we will continue to do so because the terrorism goes on even if you don't listen. And we said that if nothing was done to prevent terrorism in the Mideast, then they would get the idea that they can wage terrorism in the West. And that began in 2016 with the murder of Father Jacques Hamel, and actually before that. And it's gotten worse ever since. And we keep telling you, and you still don't do anything about it. So it's not you, our listeners. We only have like 50 or 60 listeners on this channel, but it's you in this general sense of everyone in the West who are not reacting. And when threatened, a body that doesn't react is a dead body or will be a dead body. You can't evade a knife blow if you're not moving.
Yeah.
And Ordo Militaris Catholicis exists so that we can react and that we do things that are honest, upright, lawful, legal, and moral to defend ourselves, because these terrorists will not attack hard targets. They look for the weak target. And if they know that there is an organization in their country, in their nation, in their town to defend Christians, they're certainly not going to target anyone there because they don't want the counterattack. You know, like Roosevelt said, talk softly and carry a big stick, and that maintains law and order. And this is what Ordo Militaris is all about, maintaining law and order.
Yeah. Tomorrow we're still checking the Twitter poll out, so only three votes for a live stream tomorrow. So yeah, we're probably just gonna do our normal recorded program and tell you about a solution to a problem.
Yeah, we'd like to do more live programming, but we really haven't found an hour of the day where people have the time to come together. And I think we'll have to wait until our recorded shows have audiences of over several thousand to be able to do a live show and make it interesting and useful. But tomorrow's going to be a very interesting program. We're going to start talking about what a Christian party would stand for, and what kind of a new America it would make the country.
Yep. So please tune in. Please like the program, share the programs, use your email, share the programs, audio, video, to your friends, family, relatives, parish members. Just share it, get it out there. Don't let it collect so-called dust on YouTube or BitChute or Mixcloud. Just share the programs.
Yeah, just don't listen to them. This is one of the biggest fault of people who use social media. They like what they find, but they don't share it with anyone. So they deprive a lot of people of knowing the same good things that they've found.
Yep. And if you like what we actually do with the programs and want it a little bit better quality with better camera where I'm not so slow in the movements and stuff, and so you can help by becoming a monthly subscriber or one-time donor by going to ordo-militaris.net. You can scroll all the way down to the Any Show page and see make a free will monthly subscription. Click the blue-green button, follow the steps, and thank you for your support.
And yes, and thank you to the two who are making monthly pledges already and those who have made donations. So goal goes to equipment. Neither AJ or I get a salary from this. So we do this as an apostle for your sake.
This is Ordo Militaris Radio TV signing off. Deus Volt.
Deus Volt.